Tapestry weaves together the threads of our struggles and doubts, curiosities, our faith, our joys and hopes to create meaningful conversations that matter. You know those late night conversations that go unexpectedly deep? That's what we want to capture with the Tapestry podcast. And we want everyone to jump in the conversation. Because when we are heard and valued, we can begin to believe we are loved. Welcome to the Tapestry podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Tapestry podcast. We've been talking about this idea, are we spiritual cyborgs? And I'm here with my friend Mwangi.
What's up?
And Mikayla. And let's dig in. On this one, I want to really talk about kind of the good and the bad. There's like, technology is a double-edged sword, right? Or two sides of a coin. There's this like bright, shiny happiness that can happen, but there's also kind of like a deep, dark, shadowy part of it. So yeah, let's talk about all that. Who wants to start?
I do think there is good and bad because technology obviously makes things a lot more accessible to us. It makes other people who are across the globe a lot more accessible to us. It can make things easier. It can make things better for health. Speaking of, I have a smart fountain for my cat. I have an app for it. It lets me track how much water he drinks, when I need to change out the filter, when I need to refill it, all those kinds of things. It makes making sure his health is better. And then it can make other things easier. Like I can have, for example, if I was having struggles with my vision, it would make reading a book a lot easier because I could have somebody read it to me versus having to like squint at the page if I couldn't really see very well or had extra help.
Yeah.
No, I like that last part you're talking about, Mikayla, about helping, with when it comes to tech. And, I do a lot of talks about AI at conferences and I teach some courses. And with this is exactly the same stuff we talk about, like what is beneficial, what is not. And then how do we create an ethical framework to decide that? Like something is new. How do we decide what is good or bad? Like, is it black and white? Is there a lot of gray? Who decides that? Is it a committee? And then for example, I'm part of this organization where we wrote this white paper on, using AI. But then I remember telling the group, I was like, okay, I'm like any other document this association has written, this document has to be alive because technology changes so much. So even if we had ethical framework around what's blah, 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 it has to be updated pretty frequently because technology is advancing, right, in such a pace that some things may be like, if it's helping me feed my cat, which allows me to be able to go to work or take overtime, right, or take double shifts and not worry about my cat. It's like, at the same time, then if I work so much and I come home and my cat doesn't know who I am because I've neglected it so much because, right? The tech is helping me do it. Right? So the idea around like strengths and opportunities, I think it evolves. I don't think it's one answer, right? And just to add something, there's this regulation in Europe called GDPR, right? And the idea is that they say that if Mike, you create a software company that is, going to monitor my heart rate, I'm going to wear a watch. You must collect the minimum or the minimum information possible. And so in other words, if I buy this heart rate monitor to monitor my heart rate, but somehow you're able to get my blood sugar levels or something else, right? My steps per day. How about that? That's more realistic. I put this on, but you're also able to measure my steps per day. You could look at my GPS location, right? Because I'm tied to, right? All this other stuff. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to only collect what you're collecting. And then number two, amongst many things, is I own that data. So if I wanted that data from you, I should be able to get it from you because you're collecting my data.
Yeah.
Right. So GDPR, right? This, general data protection regulations are about like
Thank you. Yeah.
arming the person who's, that the app is collecting data from, empowering them that it's really their data, right? It's their data, not yours, or at least they have a big say in how that data is being collected and managed, which is not the case, right? Which is not the case with many, 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 many technologies, right?
Yeah.
And some of those sensors may be either picking up, or you may use other data that the sensor can be tied to. Because again, many sensors can be GPS located, right? So, right, you don't know. Like you may turn it off, but like, to what extent do you know like that vendor is collecting that information? So again, I'll just bring it back to like this idea of what is good, what's not, and what else is being embedded in the technology, even though it might sound good, right? If I remember talking to a data scientist from Canada, and we're talking about the same thing, and he said, like, imagine what if we could, let's say somebody's vulnerable, let's say to heart attacks or something. Like, what if we can give them a sensor, or such that if something happens, an ambulance comes to them before they even dial 911. They don't have to dial 911 because if they live alone, who's going to dial 911 for them?
Yeah.
If it's a vulnerable population. Is that good? I don't know. Is that a good thing? Maybe. If it's your family member, you might be like, cool. But then somebody else might be like, well, wait a minute. Like, if it's continually collecting data about my health in the times that I'm not having a heart attack, what happens to that data?
Right. Yeah. Is it something then like your health insurance company buys and then ups your rates because they know how often you have a certain.
And it's happening right now with car.
Yeah.
When they put those devices in your car to say safe driving, like to see if you're safe driving, that's data going to insurance companies to measure you.
Well,
now,
GM got in big trouble. Yeah, their GM is now banned for 5 years from selling any data from any of their any cars that that they are connected to, because basically they were doing that. They were like, selling all of that data to insurance companies, and people's rates were going up. They're like, hey, wait, why did that happen? Oh, so well, we got this information from the thing. Well, what's the thing? Oh, it was in the EUL, the end user license agreement. Yeah. So like, and so you're signing that stuff. So yeah, there are positives and negatives. There are upsides and downsides. The thing that might prevent a death by heart attack might also increase your insurance premium if somebody else gets a hold of that. I think for me, if we talk about, I mentioned tools before, like this idea that social media or modern technology, things like our cell phones or our smartwatches or whatever, are just another tool, like a hammer. Yeah, I mean, I think that's true on one level, but I feel like, because a phone can be used to, or, social media can be used to build somebody up or tear somebody down. A hammer can be used for for or for destruction, right? You can break stuff with a hammer. Now, for me, a hammer is now a tool that I primarily use for building things. And it seems like I just need a lot more discipline around modern technology, like my phone or whatever, in order for it to be constructive in my life. Right? Like, it's much easier for me to end up doom scrolling, a phrase we used earlier, or distracted by foolishness, whatever it is, than with a hammer. And I think there's a degree to which that's just about maturity, right? Because when I was little, when I was a kid, a hammer was much more likely to be a weapon or an implement of destruction, right? Like, we certainly did that. And now that I'm a bit older and a bit more mature, it's almost always something that I use to create rather than destroy. And hopefully it's something good that will last. But it seems
I hear what you're saying, but somebody has to define what the hammer is for, right? Mm-hmm. So a hammer is to put, either bang a nail in or take it out. Right?
Okay.
So to your point, so have we defined what these technologies are for? If I'm using a saw, if I'm using a hammer, if I drive a car, if I use an ice cream scoop, those are tools that are defined and have a purpose, right? Now, can I misuse them? Yes. But originally, this is what they're designed for. So the question is, with some of these technologies, are we using them first according to their purpose? And then have we taken their purpose and then broadened them to the point where they're maybe detrimental, right? To your point, like you can't do heart surgery with a hammer. Not going to happen, right? It's a tool, but it's not going to help you with heart surgery, right?
You can stop a heart, but
you're going to stop
it.
Yeah, right. Whatever but like what it depends on what your scope of work is there, right? But like the tool itself, the way it was designed was to do this, right? If you choose it to use in another way, you might get injured, right? Or you might not be successful in what you're doing. I'm not sure we've done that well with technology necessarily. I know we may say, I go on Instagram to see what Mikayla is up to, right? But there's way more than that, because now I get ads. And then it's like, this is the person Mikayla follows, right? It's way more than just that.
Right. And even with like the concept of a cell phone, the original purpose of a cell phone, or at least the reason my mom got me one when I was, I think 12 or 13, was to know where I am and be able to call me or text me wherever I needed to be. I had volleyball practice a lot of the time when I was a kid. I had choir performances. I had a lot of things I needed to be at, and she wanted to be able to be in constant communications. But now cell phones have turned into so much more. You can take pictures with them. You can take videos with them. You can access the internet. You can do absolutely almost everything possible from your phone. I mean, I was on my way to the bathroom at work. This is a little embarrassing, but I was on my way to the bathroom at work today, but I've been looking for apartments for at least like 2 weeks now for me and my roommate. And I was using my phone to scroll the internet for apartments while I was walking all the way to the back of the store to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is not what I originally ever had a phone at 13 for.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. It wasn't so that you could be advertised to on Instagram, like Mwangi was saying. And, dear listener or viewer, you might have found this podcast through an advertisement that we ran on Instagram. So like we are complicit in all of this. We're running ads on social media. We are on YouTube, right? Right now you might be watching this on YouTube rather than just listening on a podcast app. And YouTube, as I understand it, was originally conceived as kind of a glorified slideshow for people's vacation photos and videos. Like the people who made it were like, it would be nice if I had a place where I could share with my family and maybe a couple other people the things that I did when I went to Hawaii. It is clearly much, much more than that. And so a hammer, which is maybe for hammering in a nail or taking it out. Maybe I might argue also for adjusting things. It depends on what kind of hammer it is. Maybe it's for fashioning, if you're a blacksmith, smithing something. So, maybe hammers have a little bit more of a broad use.
But it's specific though, like to your point, you don't take one mallet, like a soft mallet to try to
Yeah. And certainly not the range that something like YouTube, which is only one fraction of the technology that we're talking about here. It's just so much more sophisticated and complex, which means it can be used for so many more things, which means that it can be misused in so many more ways that we never could have conceived of. And I think that's one of the concerns that people have about this kind of technology, because those who have ill will, those who would hurt people, can be very creative and find ways to turn even what feels like the best, most wholesome thing into something that can be really, really destructive. And so how do we deal with that balance between this thing? I mean, a good example right now that I'm dealing with is we're about to take some high schoolers to Ecuador for a trip where we're going to help build a school and we're going to do some other things, which is going to be awesome. And the leadership is talking about how we deal with cell phones with the teenagers that are going to be on this trip. And one of the reasons we have to talk about this is because one of the groups that's coming had a case where someone was essentially abused on a trip using a cell phone, like, looked up something that they shouldn't have looked at and showed it to somebody else. I don't know all the details, but this is the kind of thing that, like, I would never have thought of, right? That someone would do this to somebody else, but that means we have to take this into account. And so, yeah, like, is this kind of technology like a net good, or is it actually a net negative? Does it help get us closer to each other? Like, I think, like with social media, we talked about that a minute ago. I think there were some really genuinely good intentions around it. Like, when it first came, it was like, we can connect everybody. Like, what if we could connect everybody? And it could be meaningful connections that last and help people connect with those who maybe they never would have gotten to meet. Like, if you're the kind of person who doesn't make easy connections with other humans because of, whatever reason, maybe you can find your people. Like, what a beautiful thing that can be. But it's also meant, like, Mikayla, you were talking about cyberbullying, right? Like, man, it also means that the worst of us can come out. So when it comes to spirituality, or when it comes to being on a spiritual journey, like, is it a net positive? Is it a net negative? I don't know. What do you guys think? Or you can answer another question if you want, but that's kind of where my head's at.
I kind of think it's a net negative, because any meaningful interaction I've ever had with God, there wasn't a screen in sight when that happened. I always think about, like, whenever we were on mission trips and stuff like that, and we would get to the very important nights where we would all pray for each other, or we'd all be sitting there just sobbing our eyes out together. Nobody was on the phone those nights, other than to either, like, write down thoughts about what they wanted to say to other people. Because I know one of the nights I wrote down like a ton of notes on my phone for all of my friends that when it was their turns to go and things like that. But nobody was using phones to just, like, constantly scroll on Instagram or to be doing something else while they were within a different moment. We all sat in that moment together. We all cried in that moment together. We all learned something about our faith in that moment. And then we all got to grow together without the use of phones. I also think that it just takes away from that as a whole, because I think community is such a huge thing when it comes to your faith, that if you're not interacting with your actual community members, like face to face, whether or not it's playing a game, whether or not it's eating dinner together, if you're not doing that without screens present, it's hard to make those meaningful connections, even if there's a phone on the table. I mean, like, my friends and I will have our phone sitting on the table, but I'll know that every single one of us, every 3 seconds, is like grabbing it to see, oh, did this person text me? Oh, did that person text me? Oh, did I get a response about this thing that I've been waiting to hear on? Like, it just immediately will pull your focus out of the moment, whether or not you can see the screen or not. So I think that it kind of will create a net negative if it's used, because you're not focused as much in the present. You're not going to get the full message that he has to share for you that day.
I like that. 2 things I think about is, we humans are not different. So if you took somebody from 400 years ago and you brought them to our time, they would just, a baby born 400 years ago and you brought them, there really wouldn't be any difference. And I come back to one of the technologies that happened is the written word, right? The written word was a technology in the Gutenberg press. But I argue the written word has also been abused and been used to take advantage of people. And you may argue that it has caused, right? Essentially, like, the word has been used to declare war. It also has been used to end wars, right? So to me, when it comes to us as human beings, I see no difference in the technology we have today, whether it's visual or it's our phone, even going back to how we have used the written word, this wonderful thing where we can put thoughts down on paper. and communicate those things never meant we were ever going to, like, the idea that we were also going to be honest finally when the written word came out, that's not true, right?
Yeah.
That was not going to change anything. So the idea that now we have this technology where we can connect with each other globally or locally, now we all of a sudden have this epiphany where everybody's going to be cool. No, it's not going to happen. I'm not trying to be a pessimist, but it's the truth. So whether it's that technology of today, where we could do so much, or is it technology where I can write something and send it out, right? I mean, I like, or, George Orwell, like 1984, he says, like, Eurasia, like, we were with Eurasia. I've never been to Eurasia. I have no idea who those people are, but somehow I'm invested in something I have no idea about simply because somebody has told me that this is an issue, right? We see it happening right now in our country. So I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but my point is we've been here before from a human history perspective. We have failed and we've succeeded. And I think whatever technology is going to come, as advanced as it could be, I think we're going to keep failing and succeeding either way.
That's good. I read something a couple years ago now, I think, about how we can get captivated by certain things, certain technologies. And it was a writer talking about these critics who were very skeptical about this new technology that was like people were spending a lot of time on, and kind of they ended up in the kind of their own world because of it. And this person, I think, was maybe a little chauvinistic and was especially worried about women in this case. I'm not sure why. Just kind of spending all their time on this technology. And this technology was novels, was paperback novels, was like the written, like printing press, like relatively inexpensive novels. So we're not talking about like high literature necessarily, right? But like now we think of somebody who's a bit of a bookworm who spends their time in those kinds of worlds. Actually, like that's a virtue for the most part, right? We tend to think of those people as like, maybe, more intellectual or maybe smarter or whatever. It's so different, right? And this person's point in writing all this is that, yeah, it's just another technology, whether it's Gutenberg's technology or whether it's Zuckerberg's technology. It's, that was pretty good, right? It's how you use it, right? You can get lost in that world, and it can be a negative thing. And Mikayla, to your point about, yeah, like if we're in a space that feels like a holy moment, and there are things that need to be said or feelings that need to be expressed or whatever it is, and somebody's like scrolling instead, it breaks that connection. But I also hope that this, for someone right now listening or watching, can be a holy moment as well, that technology can create those kinds of connections where someone says, actually, I actually feel closer to my creator or whatever it is, however you would express that or understand it, because that's how you ended up connecting. And so my hope is that we can create those kinds of moments, even in the midst of screens or whatever. And maybe you're listening to this podcast while you're on a walk and you've got your headphones in and you're like near a tree, and it's like, what? Somebody either thought to plant that tree, or like a squirrel buried an acorn and now there's a tree. And it's just amazing how the world works, even without me having to strive for it. And so maybe I can put down these things that I feel like I have to strive for, and let myself be in this moment, because I think that's one of the dangers of technology. I think it's one of the dark sides or the downsides is that it takes us out of the moment. It keeps us from experiencing the people that have been placed in our path. And I think it can keep us from experiencing what God has for us in that moment. So maybe after you're done listening to this podcast, just turn it off, man. Just listen to your own breathing for a minute. Or
Go for a walk.
Or maybe,
Go look at the
maybe
trees.
pause it right now and come back later.
What else is like, just at the same time, I have this belief that maybe there's somebody who is not in a place where they want to interact with the people around them because it is so negative. And I can see a point in the future we have theological ChatGPT AI that is something that you can interact with that consumes, information, let's say from this podcast, and takes some phrase that Mikayla said and uses it to allow a person to get to where they want to be, right? Because it's true. We're like, okay, shut down the technology, interact with people. But if you're not in a space, it's jacked up where I'm at. I think there's opportunity for technology to allow this person to interact with this technology that allows them to liberate their minds. Because let's be honest, again, we are, just because I go out and I interact with people doesn't mean it's going to be positive. We know that.
That's true, too.
So I do feel like there's a spot for technology in the right way, right? To perhaps, provide some space, some liberation for somebody where they don't have it. Where they don't have it.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I agree with you because I hope that we bring hope to you because they call it a whole thing on social media. And again, I talk about social media so much because that's my main form of technology that I think of. They call it hope core videos, or you see people doing good things for other people. You see people talking about other faiths positively. Those things mean so much to me online when I see somebody give somebody a free car that needed a car desperately to get to work. And all of a sudden they now have a brand new car. Those things make me feel good about the world. They make me have hope for the world that there are still good people and all of the good, the bad, and the ugly that you can see. You can usually miss the bad or the good in all of the bad and the ugly. So seeing hope core and things like that in technology, in seeing how other people treat each other online, that brings me hope for the future. And like this community, reading all of the Tapestry blogs, but all of that gives me hope that there are other people who are willing to come together to make other people feel good if the places they aren't in, like if they're in a bad place or they're not in a place where the people that talk to them are nice to them. I hope that this gives them somewhere where they feel like they're talking to their friends at a table and they hear all of the nice things that they have to say and all of the hopeful things that they have to say for people.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Now I got to search up Hope Core. I got to see what's going on there. Maybe,
I'll send you some videos, Mike.
Yeah, send
Don't
me
worry.
some stuff. That sounds good. Oh man, what a great place to end this episode. I guess I just want to mention anybody listening, if you're in that rough spot and if it feels really, really dark and you need help, first of all, 988 is a number you can call if you're in that kind of crisis. But also you can reach out to us and we'll do our best to respond. And, hopefully you feel that, you can make some sort of connection with somebody who actually does care. And you may say, well, you don't know me. It's like, that doesn't mean I can't care about you. And it doesn't mean I can't get to know you. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And, we'll see you next time. We'll maybe talk a little bit more about AI. I think I want to talk, a little bit about how this idea of like technology we've been talking about as a thing that's outside of us, but really there's a sense in which technology is us. It's something that we have made and it reflects who we are. So, what does that say spiritually about us? So we'll, see you guys next time. Bye.
Be good, guys.
The Tapestry podcast is produced by Stephen Bailey. Original music was scored by Taylor Martin. Our hosts are Haley Bird, Mwangi Ndonga, and me, Mike Orr. Special thanks to Lauren Richmond Jr. and Resonate Media. You can learn more about Tapestry and join the conversation on our Discord channel at tapestrytalk.org. Thanks for joining us.